Hi there.
Good.
How are you?
I am great. I am great.
Good, good. I'm waiting on Nora to come on.
Good.
We are now live.
Alive. All right. And I have
Hi there.
posted. I'm gonna send it out again.
How are you? Okay, hold on.
I am great. I am
I'm
great.
getting reverb. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm waiting on Nora to come on. Oh, goodness. We
I
are
had
now live.
I had to speak in Memphis today at noon, so I had to drive back from Memphis today.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm having some difficulty. Hold on one second. I hear you, but I'm getting reverb.
Let me shut
One
that door.
second.
I'm gonna shut the door. Maybe
Okay.
that'll help.
I think I can hear you now.
Okay, hear me better, right?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
All right.
Now
I was getting reverb.
Yeah, I spoke at a luncheon in Memphis today, so I was driving back, saying, "Okay, gotta get back."
Okay.
Yeah, we had plenty of time to spare. Great.
Okay. Yes, you're busy.
Busy. That's a good thing, though.
It is. It is.
It is.
Oh, there she is. And there's Dr. No, Dr.
See,
Davis.
I know you thought I was going to be late. I know you said that.
I didn't say it to him. I was
Oh, my
thinking.
bad. Oh, my bad. I didn't know
Hey, how are you today?
Hey, how you doing? I'm going to turn my
great.
camera on.
I have known your sister forever, but I think this is our first time ever meeting.
Yes, sir, it is. And let me apologize in advance. I have a very loud grandchild in the background.
I have four grandchildren, but none of them are with me. I left them where I just departed from. So, but they would be loud if they were here.
He lives with me and he's in full effect, and he cares less that I have Zoom.
That's good.
We're working on that.
Well, he will absorb some of the knowledge, so he'll be well prepared as he grows.
Well, it's great to meet you.
So are you knitting or they're not crocheting?
No, this is a kite.
Oh, a kite string. Okay.
I am refooling it for no reason. Because it's gonna be all over the floor again. He feels it fly outside. He think he can fly it in here. Y'all just bear with me.
Okay.
If you start running around, we know what's going on.
It's probably in the fan in a minute. But anyway, so where are you from, sir?
Me, I am from Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, so you're from Jackson.
I am. My parental units are from Thornton, Mississippi, and Midnight, Mississippi.
Thornton and Midnight. So I remember seeing Midnight back in the day when we used to travel.
Midnight is between Louise and Silver City.
Silver City, yes. You know, before they made the bypass, we used to go through there all the time.
Exactly.
And I was in Louise this weekend, weekend before last, working at a free clinic. And I passed by then. I said, I ain't seen this sign in so long.
That's right. It's between those two.
Well, I'm from Mound Bayou, as you probably know, through Catherine.
I do know, yeah.
And from my dialect.
No, I couldn't tell from the dialect. I'm not gonna go there.
Now, I think I'm just on here so I could share the link or something, because we're gonna be talking to you, I'm sure. I'm just gonna sit in the cut and be like,
okay.
I might not be able to tell them what to do, but I sure can tell them what not to
do. Sometimes that's the best way to learn.
Man.
Amen. It's
been a bout lesson for me, I tell you.
Yeah, that earned knowledge is the best knowledge.
Oh,
you pay for it, you remember it.
You got that right. All right, Catherine, what is my role here?
You're doing it
before
now.
This house gets off the chain.
You're doing it now. You're co-moderator. We're asking him questions. So we get started now since since we're here and the time has started. We're here because Pastor Henley, Attorney Henley, all the hats he wears, many hats. He has a website called ABC, the ABCs of LLCs.
I should have went to his website first before I did this.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm listening.
Thank you for pointing that out. But anyway, he was recently interviewed on a news station about the ABCs of LLCs, and he wants to warn people and advise and guide people, as like you and I who start these LLCs, sometimes with or without guidance. and then we find big old holes to fall in.
Yes.
And beg for help to get out and take out loans, and those poor misguided souls that started LLCs and with the intention of PPP loans, so he's here to make sure that that people are advised on the best way of doing this.
So I need the questions that I need to ask them, and we go from there. You tell me what my questions are.
You can ask him what pops in your head. So he's an attorney, he's a CPA, he's all of those things, and he'll give you spiritual advice on top of all of that. So
I'm gonna get some special prayer. I'm gonna get some advice on business. I need all of the above. No, I'm just playing, but I do need it. But I know I want to make sure I stay in the right direction with the questions, because I can definitely get off target and task. Okay. And go off in wormholes, and I want.
We'll bring you back. We'll bring you back.
There you go. That's what I'm here for, to bring you back from the wormhole. All right. So, Pastor Henley, if you would tell whoever may be watching and who may be watching later when I share this video on Facebook.
No, I just want the real video. I thought this was practice.
It's live, sweet. It's live. You are live. You are live streaming. People are watching you right now.
Practice. I thought this was the practice video.
No, it's not practice. Okay. So, Pastor Henley. Pastor Henley, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, very interesting. Probably the biggest thing is making sure that people understand what a limited liability company is. A limited liability company is a creation of the state. The IRS doesn't recognize LLCs. It's a non-entity as far as the IRS is concerned. And you have to tell the IRS what you are. For instance, when a baby is born, the federal government doesn't know that a baby exists. So when a baby is born in a hospital or somewhere else, the state issues you a birth certificate, and the state on that birth certificate declares you as a female or a male, and then you contact the federal government and you notify the federal government that you exist, and they give you a Social Security number. Similarly, when you create a LLC, you notify the federal government that you exist to get your tax identification number. And at that point in time, and this is where most LLCs are created, and this is where a lot of them don't understand certain things. And one of the things they don't understand that when the LLC is created, an LLC has options. An LLC, when you're born, you're either male or female, period. That's the preacher in me coming out. But let me go back to the LLC. When LLC is created, if you're a single person, you can be a single member LLC or what's called a sole proprietorship. But a single member LLC can also be an S corporation, or a single member LLC can also be a C corporation. But a single member LLC has to make that election when that single member LLC notifies the IRS when it's forming. When I get my EIN, I can attach a form 82, I think 83, and tell the IRS, hey, by the way, I'm getting this tax ID number and I'm going to be a corporation, even though I'm a single member LLC. If I don't do anything at all, the default classification for me is sole proprietorship because I didn't tell them anything. If I want to be an S corporation, I have to attach that 2523 and file it in addition to getting my EIN. I have to mail that off. I have like 3 years, I think 7 months. But most of the time, I want to go ahead and do it right at that point in time and declare that I'm an S corp so I can start getting S corp treatment. Most people, when they file an LLC, they simply go in and they pay Secretary of State that money. They go in and get an EIN. They may go get a state tax ID number, and they are just in LLC, and they're going to put on their Schedule C, and they never thought about or they never knew that they could be an S corp or they could be a C corp. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting because they just don't know. Same thing if you're two people coming in and you're forming an LLC, by default, the IRS is going to call you a partnership, and they're going to call you a general partnership, which forces you to do a Form 1065 to allocate K1. But that same 2 people or 3 people or 4 people or 5 people could determine they wanted to be an S corp or determine they wanted to be a corporation, and they can make those same elections. So on the front end, that's probably the biggest, not mistake, but biggest issue I see, because a lot of people who form LLC just heard somebody else say, oh, it's so easy to become an LLC. Just pay $50 to the Secretary of State office and go get a tax ID number, and boom, you're an LLC and you're in business and you have your own LLC, and now you're protected from everybody in the world. And you have all the advantages of being an LLC, and you have limited liability, because the whole reason to become an LLC is to have limited liability, but your liability is only limited for the acts of your employees or maybe a product. You're never limited from stuff that you actually physically do. So that's sort of the starting point. And of course, there are a lot of other things we can go into, but I'll see if you got any questions as we go from there.
I have one. Because I went to we formed a C corp when we still have it, building towards buying real estate. And
okay, was it an LLC or just a straight C corp?
Straight C corp, not LLC. It was a straight C corp. And the reason why we have shareholders, we have 91 shareholders. They buy stocks into it, and we had a max capacity of 100,000. And because we only had 91 shareholders, excuse me, I was told that within 3 years, 7 months, I could file as an S corp.
That's correct. You can
convert. So I did. I talked with someone in the IRS. They said, yes, do the 2523 form. And we did all that. And they said, get these signatures of all the owners, which was interesting with 91 people, because they're all over the place. They're not all in Jackson and all in Mount Bayou. The intention is to buy land in Mount Bayou. So I had to send out these forms and have them have the original sent back to me.
Correct.
All of them didn't come back in time. And the deadline, the IRS doesn't care. They don't care. That reminder right before the deadline. And that reminder came, and we had maybe 30 days. And I could not get all of those signatures in. And they knew how many owners I had, because I already filed, declared that when it was a C corp. And I saw all the tax benefits go out the window and all the small business opportunities go out the window, because we didn't do that in the beginning. We should have. So my question, I do have an actual question. I said all of that was, is there any kind of way to do a late term? Like, we're now past the 4-year mark. Is there any other kind of way after that 3 years, 7 months that we could, anything we can get
no.
The answer is no. The short answer. Okay. There's the answer.
I mean, because with the IRS, their deadlines are what they are, and they give them to you for a reason. Mm-hmm. We told you 3 years and 7 months ago, this was your deadline. That's why you shouldn't get to church late. That's why you shouldn't leave home late for an appointment. You train people to be late, and that's why they lose their jobs, because they think it's okay to get there 5 minutes late on a consistent basis. So they think that when the IRS gives them a deadline, they don't really mean it. No, they mean their deadline.
They really mean it. They really meant it, because I say, is there any kind of way? I mean, when I tell you they didn't even answer the phone again, I had all
No,
kinds of.
you have basically you have to. But what you could do is, to a certain degree, I mean, is it possible for you to start over and that
Just
entity?
dissolve and start over again. I don't know if those same people. I had to redistribute the funds and everything, but it's something. Someone else brought that up too. Starting all over from
Yeah, have
scratch.
y'all bought a bunch of property already?
Not a whole bunch. Nope. Nothing that's not gonna can be situated.
Or talk offline.
Yes, sir. We'll
Yeah,
talk
we'll get
offline on that one.
because we're doing general advice, not specific legal advice. This
Right.
show is
Yes,
not
sir.
intended specific legal advice. If you have specific legal advice, you need to consult your own attorney offline.
Yes, sir. I sure will. I will absolutely do
That was
that.
a general disclaimer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As a
Of
general
being
disclaimer.
yeah.
All right. So you said that was attorney advice. Now Nora has something to say because she can't resist having something to say. Yes, ma'am.
What would you say would be an advantage to doing S corp versus C corp if you were going to start your LLC and you were torn between the two? What would you say? What advice would you give on when deciding which one to do?
Well, the S corp allows you to avoid double taxation if you're making a sufficient amount of income. On an S corp, you're required to pay yourself a reasonable salary, and when you pay yourself that reasonable salary, any additional income that's made above the reasonable salary is going to flow to you on your personal return, and you're not going to be paying double taxes on it. It's going to flow you on your personal return, and you won't be paying corporate tax on it. If you're on a C corp, you're going to pay corporate tax rates on that extra income that you make, and that's the main advantage. But the catch is, I mean, there are advantages staying in the C corp also, just depending on what you're doing. And are you in the initial stages of it? Are you losing money? Are you making money? Because some businesses have like a 5 to 10 year growth cycle before they actually start really making a lot of money. So there could be an advantage to stay in a C corp on the front end, just depending that first 2 or 3 years. But remember, you got a 3 or 7 month cycle. You got to make a decision at some point if you want to switch over.
Okay.
And if you got 91 folks, you might want to decide pretty quick.
So it basically depends on the revenue that you're bringing in as an organization and how you grow.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And grandson is talking.
Yes, sir. So I have questions about the show that you had, the interview you did, and you had the PowerPoint, and so it was gold and yellow. You were talking the ABCs of LLCs, and you were going through the actual ABC. Could you do that right now for us?
Well, they probably won't be the same. Because she asked me then, and it was sort of like, okay, you asked me, I'll go A, B, C, D, if that's what you want me to do. A really was, you have to determine, I'm trying to think what I told her A was, but really, A, you have to determine really how you want to align yourself, because this is an asset for you. Whatever you have is an asset. And so you got to make a determination at the beginning, how am I going to structure this asset? Is it going to be an LLC corporation? Is it going to be a subchapter S? And I have to have looked at this and thought through it. And first of all, I think you need to get an attorney. That sounds for A. A lot of people use CPAs, and that's great. But the reason I think that that's important is because the B stands for you're creating a business entity. And that business entity means you got to look at your different options and which option suits me for what I'm about to do. If I'm a corporation, am I going to be an S Corp or am I going to be a C Corp? And why would I choose one or the other one? That's my choice of entity, and what choices should affect why I do this. If I get D, I've got designated deadlines for why I'm doing certain things. I'm evaluating certain things. For instance, I need to have and I go back to D if I think about it. I need to have an operating agreement, which is all the way back in O, but I'm gonna come back to D, because in my operating agreement, I need to designate what each person in here what their responsibilities are, how I'm going to operate within this entity that I create, because I need to show that this entity is really a separate entity from me. Even if I'm a single member LLC that shows up on a Schedule C, I need to have an operating agreement that shows that that entity is separate and apart from me. That's how I establish that I have limited liability. In other words, I need a separate bank account that I operate out of. I need a separate general ledger that I'm operating out of. I don't need to be commingling my funds with that quote entity because I'm thinking it's me. No, it's not you. It's a separate entity from you. My operating agreement needs to specify that. I can't just have a piece of paper and then not follow through. And so many people do that. I don't know. I think I was just on a roll that day. She told me I went back and looked at it. No, but yeah, you need to have someone who follows through on everything. You need to have a designated person. For instance, why I say follow through. When you form your LLC, you have to designate.
Sorry, if someone coming in. Yeah, Pastor Henry, unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. When you form,
okay.
When you form your LLC, you have to designate whether you're member managed or whether you are manager managed. A lot of people just check a box. They don't understand that there can be some tax ramifications to which box you pick if there are multiple members. Let me give you an example. Okay. If you check manager managed, and you have 10 members, and those 10 members who are actually owners, and you check manager managed, that means you have an outside manager who's managing it. And since you have an outside manager who's managing it, that means none of those managers, those members, have a quote general partnership interest, so to speak. So theoretically, all of those members could theoretically be considered limited partners, which means none of them have self-employment income on the income generated from that LLC, which means that they wouldn't have to pay self-employment tax on that because they're a managed member. But if you say it's member managed, all of those members now have self-employment income on all the income that flows through to them. How many people actually think through that when they sell their LLCs? If it's multiple people, I'd be willing to bet hardly any. And why they don't think about it? Because they don't go talk to me or somebody like me. Because there are a lot of smart people out there, but they don't really think through the tax ramification of the choices they're making, or they don't tune into your broadcast and get all these great notes that we're going through. Geographically, where are you located? If you want to move from one state to another, remember I told you that these entities are created by states. So Alabama's LLC rules might be different from Mississippi LLC's rules. And so if you go from one state to another, you really have to look and see, do they allow foreign registrations of LLCs? You got to see what are their rules regarding LLCs and how they operate. Does your operating agreement function within this state? Are you required to liquidate this LLC and start another LLC in this state? Do you need a subsidiary LLC in this state? And that's something that you have to do because they aren't all the same. You need to keep your house in order. You need dot your I's and cross your T's. You make sure you file your annual statements. And I joke about that, going back to A with annual statements, keeping your house in order. Every year, you're required to file an annual statement. Every year, some company is going to try and milk you out of money and send you something in the mail that says, hey, for $50, we'll file your annual statement for you. For $125, we'll file your annual statement for you. You can file your own annual statement for free. You don't need to pay anybody anything. But people send you those, and guess what? I know people who paid them to do it. And they'll say, I paid somebody this. I had a good friend of mine said, well, James, I paid him for 2 years until you were talking one day, and you were saying, now some people get milk. And I thought, raise my hand, it's me. I didn't know. I heard you say that. And I actually talked about it in a sermon one day. And so I was saying, Hosea 4:6 says our people die for a lack of knowledge. And sometimes we just don't know because we don't find out or do the research And I suppose things for ignorance because we don't take the time to investigate ourselves and for investigate. We need to investigate what's out there to make sure we have the right knowledge or investigate what ways can this entity benefit me as I go forward. If I become a corporation, what are the benefits of being a corporation versus a sole proprietor? So should I become a corporation versus a sole proprietorship when my income passes the average salary of a regular person? Yes, that's really the point. When you're making more income than the average person, that's when you really need to start looking at an S corp or a C corp because you really want to start take advantages of those. If you're just generating basic enough income of the average wage earner, you might as well stay sole proprietor. But at some point, you want to get above that, or you want to win into business for yourself. I'm thinking, Jay, jobs. Are you hiring other people? If you're hiring other people, that means they might be doing something wrong. So you need that corporate protection of that corporate structure. So you want to make sure you're separating everything, but you need to make sure you have the right insurance. If I have too many employees, I need workers' comp insurance. You need general liability insurance, but once you start hiring employees, you really want to make sure that you've got the right insurances in place. And sometimes when we go into business, we don't think about how important that is. K, I know connection doesn't start with C, but sometimes we do the Ebonics thing and K for connections. Your connections are important because you need to connect with other business-minded people who are trying to, I suppose, move forward and not backwards. And in our community, you have some forward-thinking people, I suppose that's F, who want to move forward. You need to connect with them because they're going to be people who can give you information, who can advise you, people who've done this before, who basically have made some mistakes in the past, and maybe you can learn from them. And I mean, L, you're going to have some losses. You're going to make some mistakes. That's M. But learn from those losses, learn from those mistakes, and don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to say no to people. And no, because a lot of people are going to try and sell you stuff, give you gadgets, tell you another way to make money. If God gave you an ideal and told you to run with that, run with your ideal. Work with what you're good at. I don't know if y'all ever seen the movie Apple Mortgage Cake. If you haven't, you might want to watch the movie Apple Mortgage Cake.
Okay.
A woman saved her house selling cakes. And it's a true story. But she started a business doing something that she loved, and her son had to suggest it to her. And sometimes it's right in front of you, but then you get overwhelmed and you can't see what's right in front of you, that business ideal, or you can't see how to set up the structure. And sometimes the answer is right in front of you. You just have to ask for help sometimes. And sometimes that should have been asked, I suppose. Ask for help sometimes. H, we need help sometimes. We're just afraid to ask others. And maybe because, we think we're omnipresent instead of God. And we don't think we need any help. But P, other people are there for a reason to assist. Now, some of them you need to kick to the curb, but some people are there who really want to help you. Q, what's Q? I don't know. You got to have queries, questions, right? Query folks. If you got questions, ask. Don't be afraid not to ask. Or you can't stay reserved. You got to be bold. That's B. And go out there. T, talk about your business. Talk about what you're doing. Talk about your LLC. But don't just talk about your LLC. Understand what your LLC is. And don't just get an LLC to have an LLC. Understand what it is and how it protects you and allows you to move forward. Go to classes on LLCs. Ask questions about it. But setting up the LLC is just the beginning of your, quote, business. It's now making sure I have my annual business meetings, making sure that I'm documenting those meetings, making sure I have annual minutes, making sure that, remember now, that BOI, that business information, what is that? BOI, the business organization information, that form that FinFin requires. If you start your LLC this year, you got to do it within 90 days of filing it. If you start your LLC last year, you got to the end of this year to file it. Alabama, that certain case, that's the only people that's exempt from it. Everybody else has to file it by the end of the year. And if you don't know what a BOI is, you already need to do some query and questioning and talk to people and find out. You need to probably call these sisters and say, can you help us?
We do that. Yes,
because a lot of people don't realize they have that obligation to do. And it's like, what, a $5,000 or $10,000 penalty for not filing those?
That's right.
And people really don't realize, you know, P should have been for penalties for not doing what you're supposed to do. It's save yourself some money by doing that. Then you won't catch up with the penalties. Taxes, please file your taxes timely. STU, nothing's universal. You're unique and special. So how your business operates and how something operates for one might not operate for you. And so remember that. And so be flexible. That was V. What's V? Some things are vexing. So just don't worry about them. No, that's the W, because you're the X factor in everything you do. And so what's the Y? You got this. And
all right. This is amazing. I'm trying to write as fast as you talk.
And we've reached zero. But the thing is, you're not a zero. You're something, because God created you and He made you for a purpose. And your purpose might be satisfied through that thing. Somebody told me one time, and I truly believe this. Somebody told me one time, wealth is necessary for God's kingdom to be what it's supposed to be. And He gave us dominion all the way back in Genesis. And He gave us dominion so we could do what we need to do. And so, in one of the ways to do it is supposed to have dominion over the stuff He put before us, but we got to learn to listen and then proceed and do it the right way. And if we do it the right way, we'll be okay. But you got to set those LLCs up the right way and set your tax structure up the right way and then follow through. And seek help if you need it. And I think these other young ladies would love to assist you any day, right?
Yes,
of course.
Absolutely.
But probably the biggest thing is, I think most people don't realize that an LLC can be a corporation. It doesn't have to be an SOC. It doesn't have to just be a sole proprietorship or a thing. And there are multiple advantages that come with that. They think they have to be an S corp or an LLC. They don't know they can be an LLC that is an S corp or an LLC that is a corporation. And that's probably the biggest, like I say, thing I found out there that people don't know.
Wow. I just watched, wow. You just went from A to Z off the top of your head. Okay, so if anyone has not on here has not seen it before, if Pastor Henley is the pastor of Fresh Start Christian Church. If you never watched him on YouTube, Facebook on a Sunday at 10, I come back from the mosque and I go, did he go live today? Because I remember the most practical, it's like practical application of the Bible. And I said, this is amazing. So if no one's ever heard it before, you can incorporate it. Everything is just flows right through it. And I remember when you showed me in the Bible where bankruptcy was.
Yeah.
What was
Deuteronomy chapter 15.
That's it.
Deuteronomy chapter 15, 1-3. Man didn't create bankruptcy, God did. That's how you get a fresh start.
That's it. That's how Fresh Start Christian Church.
That's right.
That's what I said. I heard that. I said, wow. And then you started incorporating everything in the business in Bible. You said you could always tie it back.
Yeah, you really can. And people don't realize that, debts get discharged every 7 years. Man changed to 8 about in 2005. But you have to re-enroll judgments every 7 years because that's what they did in the Bible. They recorded mortgages at the courthouse because they exchanged. Remember, when Ruth and Obed, he went to the gate because that's when they were exchanging mortgages. Sure, they had to declare where everybody could see it because you had to make public record of land exchanges. If we just copy what the Bible did, everything flows from there. Our systems haven't changed. Our financial systems, our recording systems, they all flow straight out of the word. We just forget that sometimes.
Or didn't know it at all from the jump.
Or didn't know it at all.
The generations, I'm teaching school, a little summer science program, and you had different children. I hadn't been in a classroom in 7 years, but when I started listening to the students again, and you'd be surprised how some things were just lost. Like some information just didn't get to them. So we had a guest speaker speak today, and she was talking, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" And she was talking about basic things that we were even taught in school or our parents conveyed to us. And these students, they're from all over, and they was like staring her. They were fascinated though, because it clicked. It made sense. Certain ways to behave in public, and it was like that just makes sense. But they literally were not taught these things. No one said.
And let me give you another thing about the LLCs, since we're talking about it. Like, let's say, talking about bankruptcy and LLCs. Okay. Let's say that you have an LLC and your LLC owns the car and not you. And your LLC owns the building and not you. And then you file personal bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. You realize when you file personal bankruptcy, that trustee can't go after your LLC's assets if you set it up properly. Because your LLC, even if you're a single member LLC, if you dotted your I's and crossed your T's and you got an operating agreement, that LLC is separate from you.
Okay, yes, sir.
I mean, and most people don't even realize that. They think, well, but no, your LLC is separate from you. I mean, and you keep operating it even as you're getting rid of your personal liability on stuff, because that entity is not you, but you got to set it up right.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes we have times where we have financial, but I tell people have been using that as a tool. Should that be your first option? No. But that's clearly an option, because they did it every 7 years in the Old Testament. And some people will go and say, well, but no, I'm saying it's not a first option. It's the last option. But it is an option if you need to start over. And there are certain businesses that have done this for years. A certain ex-president modeled the behavior of restarting businesses to do restructuring. And companies still do that to this day. We, for some reason, as a people, got bamboozled doing the 40 acres and a mule and thought that we need to stay sharecroppers forever, so they would never give us enough money to get out of debt. And then we were convinced that that was a terrible thing to do. This is the history lesson. And so we were taught that that was bad by the circuit preachers that were paid by them to go around preaching that it was bad, while they still did it. And so we became of the belief that it was bad, but it was biblical. So I don't know, maybe you don't believe in the Old Testament in Deuteronomy, but that's part of the Torah. So I don't know. That's part of the first 5 books. Most people believe in that. Even they disagree after that. But anyway, I'm gonna quit preaching.
Okay.
I'm gonna be quiet.
That's no problem. No problem. I'm trying, if I can encourage anyone who has any comments to ask them in the chat so that I can sift through them, because apparently the Zoom got, kind of got spread around here. So I just make sure that anyone comes in, if you could please put it in the chat. So if you have any questions, you have your hand raised, place your question in the chat, and we can get the question answered. So I see a hand raised. So if you would ask that question in the chat, type that question out for me. Did you see the hand raised by Timmy? Okay. So if you have any questions for him, if you would type that.
Somebody got their hand up.
They have their hand up, but I can't see who it is, and I can't really sift it. Okay, someone said, does it go for escort?
Yeah, this Eddie. How y'all doing?
Hold on 1 second. Say again.
This is Eddie. How y'all doing?
All right, how you doing?
Great. How are you today?
All right.
What's the question now?
Do that go for escort too?
Does it go for escort as well?
Mm-hmm. Escort. Yeah, any entity, if it's separate and apart, that same rule applies. You own the stock in there, and so that's a separate entity from you. So if you personally file, your entity is separated from you. That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? He said thank you. He had his thumbs up.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, that was the best 30 minutes of my life. But thank you, sir. That was 34 minutes of that was
You
so
are
intense.
well,
I gotta go right past.
and thank you for the invite. And hey,
Thank you.
yeah. So actually, at the end of the sermon this past week, I explained as a part of the message the reason for you average daily balances on your bank account versus average daily balances on your credit card statement and how they're utilized. And that was part of the statement because your financial health affects your mental health and sometimes it affects your spiritual health. And a lot of times we don't understand the differences in why those balances are important. Forgetting finances later on when you start a business. So if you don't know the differences between those, you can just watch the last 10 minutes and learn.
Yes, sir. I'm saying, oh my Lord, I was writing as fast as you were talking. I don't think does anyone else have anything? Anyone have any more questions? I was trying to make sure I could sift them out on the chat before they came to you. But all right, I thank you. And you're a busy man. I know I didn't want to take up a lot of your time. I've just, as always, since I met you, since the day I met you, I've always been fascinated. You've always tied things together. My two favorite things, business and religion, basically business and scripture. Business and scripture, you tied together.
And maybe people need to understand, and we don't necessarily always agree on scripture, but we've always been friends.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. So the fact that you can combine scripture, I was like, that's fascinating. The practical application is always the thing for me. Practical application, you can see it. That's one thing. So, I mean, any Christians on here, go visit his church. Any Muslims on here, go visit his church. Any Muslims, Christians, or Jews on here, go visit his church. It's a refreshing thing. I do because the tie between. I mean, you could go in there and go, okay, that's how these all connect. You connect the dots real well. And I honestly do. I remember I tithed at your church. And I'm Muslim.
I know you did.
Your church. I was like, wow. So
I can put you out of here.
I'm just
your
telling
sister's
you.
going, oh no.
What did she say? I'm just saying. I know people don't tie the two together, but in truth.
I'm mailing her, but I ain't gonna say it on the podcast.
You better not. So I mean, honestly, but I mean, the connection is there, and you show a perfect flow, between them. I said, this is amazing. So if someone was looking for a church home, I was like, have you tried Fresh Start? When people come in and say, have you tried Fresh over there on Manhattan? I can't remember the address. Plug your church, Pastor Henry. What's the address?
5210 Manhattan Road, Jackson, Miss 3920, every Sunday, 10 a.m.
There it is. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor Henry. I appreciate it.
And nice to meet you again, Miss Nora.
Nice to meet you as well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.